Hey everyone, welcome back to A Life of KG. I am so excited for you guys to listen to this episode because I had a brilliant time recording it. But I am interviewing Elizabeth, and she is a fashion brand consultant. She had 15 years working in the fashion retail industry, and now she works with independent brands, showing them how to sell their products and services. And we talk all things business. So it's a very juicy episode. So without further ado, here she is. Elizabeth, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. I'm actually drinking honey and lemon because I woke up with like a tiny bit of a sore throat and I'm going on holiday tomorrow. And I was like, there is no way I'm going to be ill for when I go away. So,
Isn't
yeah,
that
you have to drink.
always the way when you book a break and then you get poorly?
I know. It's like your body knows there is like rest coming and it's like, please give me a break.
Oh no. Where are you going?
I'm going to Turkey, although I checked the weather this morning and it looks quite suspiciously cloudy and rainy, which is not the one. But I was like, I'll just sit in the spa. It's fine.
I'm off there in the summer, so that's exciting.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so introduce yourself. Tell our listeners what you do, and I can't wait to hear more.
Yeah. So, hello, everybody. I'm Elizabeth. I'm at Elizabeth Stiles UK on Instagram. And I am a fashion brand consultant. So, I help independent businesses with their manufacturing, their marketing, and a bit of mindset stuff always creeps in there as well. So, the three M's.
Oh, I love that. So you do a lot when it comes to helping brands. What did you do before all of that? What made you transition into this business?
Yeah, so I actually worked as a fashion retail buyer. So I worked at Next, Miss Elfridge, and Asda, and that was across like women's wear and kids wear, buying different ranges. And then after about 7 or 8 years of doing buying, I think I worked for a supplier. So it's sort of like the other side of the industry. So where I was buying in from suppliers, I then became a supplier selling into the buyers. So it was nice to see that whole sort of 360 process of working with factories and going around the world and seeing different places of manufacture. It was really interesting. But then in 2018, I just got a bit bored. I can't really think of a better reason other than that to think, oh, I really want to work with smaller businesses. I'm kind of done with the whole fast fashion. It didn't feel right anymore. So I handed my notice in and yeah, never really looked back.
Wow. So it was a big leap. Was it like the best thing you've ever done?
Yeah, I think a lot of people end up working for themselves because they either get made redundant or they hate their job, they hate their boss, they want like a fresh start. Whereas for me, I actually did like my job. I liked the people, I liked the office, I got paid all right, but I don't know how to describe it other than I was just a bit bored. Like I felt like I'd been doing the same job pretty much for like I don't know 12 years, I think, at that point. And I just felt like I wanted a bit of a change and to kind of help people a bit more. Like my whole job was just plastering like the word love or Paris on shirts in like tens of thousands of units, and it just ended up feeling a little bit empty. So
Mm.
I think just as I was getting older, I was like, I really like fashion, but I really want it to have a little bit more purpose. So that's where it stemmed from, I guess.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I bet it was like amazing going to the factories and traveling because a lot of the people that listen to this podcast have their own product ranges and they will
Yeah.
talk to the factories across by email, etc., but haven't maybe actually gone and seen the whole production of everything. And I bet
Yeah,
that's a real insight.
it's so powerful. Like a lot of buying and supplying is massively to do with relationships. And I think only really recently I realized that's what I teach people across manufacturing and marketing is like how to build those really important, like loyal relationships and long-standing relationships with people. Because I think a lot of people as well, when they're starting out, they have to work with a factory's like small minimum order quantities. And then they end up working with just one factory, which is absolutely fine to begin with. But, as you scale and as you grow, you want to spread your risk. And I just help people understand like the importance of having different manufacturers so that you're not reliant on one person. And yeah, like the whole costing, negotiation, delivery, all the things that go wrong, as I'm sure that it seems really easy just to be like, oh, I'll make a product and sell it, but there's definitely a lot more to it behind the scenes about how to make that production process run smoothly and avoid some really costly mistakes that I see happen quite often.
I hear it all the time, and it's interesting you say to have a few manufacturers, because we have maybe about 7 different ones, and those of them do similar stuff. But it's like, I always think, God, what if one, you never know what's happening back there, do you? What if one goes under and then your whole company goes under because they've gone under? Or what if they run out of some type of ingredient? Like, whatever happens, you need that backup, don't you?
Yeah.
Like, all the time. But obviously, like I said, there's lots of product-based businesses that listen to this podcast, lots of lash brands, nail ranges, lots of business to business. What tips would you have to help them grow their product businesses?
I think it's like easier than ever to start a business online, which is why we have seen this like huge boom in people starting their own brands. And it's very exciting starting a brand. Um, you have the branding, you have the logo, you have the buying of the products, you have like the creation. And I think people are very much usually within their comfort zone in that area to go, yeah, I know product, I know the industry that I'm in. But then the industry they're not then comfortable with is selling that product. And it does feel like the creation of the thing is within the comfort zone, and then putting it out to other people is outside of the comfort zone. And that's probably where I see a lot of small businesses failing, is not being prepared to put themselves in that zone of discomfort and sell. Because I never got taught how to sell anything. I was probably like 28 when I went into that sales job, when I actually got given some sales training, and it was like a really nice sort of stepping stone into having my own business and learning how to sell. And I'm going to maybe sound like a broken record, but it is about building a community, building relationships with your suppliers, but also with your audience. And you tend to be like the middle person between those two big relationships within the business, and to keep those sort of withstanding. But what people really, I think one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is that they buy too many units for the amount of followers that they have. So as an example, they might say buy 500 units and launch a business with 300 followers. And I'm no business aficionado, but I know that from a really basic point of view, that your demand has to outstrip your supply, not the other way around. Is that something you see quite often with people, where they buy too much product for how big their community is?
All the time. I have because I'm a business mentor to this, like the beauty industry as well, beauty and hair, it seems to be this whole thing at the moment of, okay, I'm great in my treatment I do. I now they then go on to being a trainer and open training academies, and then their next step, and then after that, is to have their own product range. But what I'm seeing is, one, they will order some samples but not loads, and not go through thorough testing of the products. So then when they put their big orders in, it's not what they thought it would be, so they've wasted all of their money. Then the other thing I see is, they think because everyone else is doing it, that's my next step. But then, like I said, the followers and stuff just aren't matching up. They haven't got the following base. They don't even do email marketing. And I'm like, well, how are you going to sell? Like, how is your product different to anyone else's? And I think that's what people struggle to see when they're starting out and creating brands and creating products. Like, I really think they need to realize, okay, why is my product different to a competitor's product? Why would someone change? Because I think people don't like change either. If they're happy with something, they normally stick with it.
Yeah, especially in beauty, I imagine like people tend to be quite loyal to products, and it's quite a risk to get somebody to move away from the brand that they know and like and trust. And so it's your job to build that know, like, and trust with people. And I think we all know through like friendships and relationships that trust is earned, it's not a given. But for some reason, when people start a business, I feel like they assume trust should just be a given. And it's no different in relationships to business, that you have to earn that trust through content, like you say, through email, through a really well tested product, and taking people through that journey with you. And I actually heard it on some reality TV show the other day that was like, trust is built in droplets, not buckets. Like, you can't rush this process of building trust with your audience. Like, it has got to take time. And just thinking about how you can build trust with people through content, especially with something like beauty that is, you know, uses all the senses. It's kind of why I encourage people a lot to use video content, because it's like the next best thing to being in person, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good one, using video content. And a lot of product goes off. So I think a lot of people go, oh, well, I can buy this product and it's a fraction of the price if I was going to go to a different company to buy it for my salon or whatever that might be. But then, so they order all of it thinking, well, each product is costing me so much less, but then they don't shift the product. So it goes off and then you chuck it anyway.
Yeah. And like with sustainability and, you know, that being such a huge part of the marketing process nowadays, I never really thought about that, because in fashion, I always say to people, like, don't worry, it doesn't go off. Like, yeah, we have trends that kind of come and go, but just if you're making a linen suit, for example, you might have a season, but you could probably bring it back next year. But with beauty, you actually can't do that. So there is probably more of like a time pressure. And when you mentioned there, like where people think, oh, if I buy more, it will cost less. And that is another mistake that I see people make, is thinking, oh, yeah, well, if I buy more, I'm going to get it at a fraction of the cost. But that's never the case. If you buy more, it's going to cost you more. It's just that your cost per unit is lower. And they're two different things. I think people maybe get those mixed up, to be like, oh, well, it's going to cost me less if I buy more. Like, no, if you buy more, it's going to cost you more. And
Definitely.
I kind of encourage people to negotiate like the quantity down at the beginning, rather than trying to negotiate the cost down. And from what you just said, that's probably even more important if you do have that time deadline on your product to sell it, because like, yeah, you don't want it all to go in the bin. That's such a waste.
Yeah, normally most beauty products are around about a year if they're not opened. So
Yeah.
if you think you've got to hold that, then you've got to sell it. So really you don't want loads, because if you don't sell product for 6 months, then you know that product's going off in another 6 months. It's just, you've got to really sort the numbers out first. But it was really interesting what you said about like followers and stuff. Would you say, I think there's a stat, isn't there? I think it's around 1 to 3% of your followers actually buy into your product.
Mm-hmm.
So people can work out with what their following is, how much units they're more than likely to sell with what their following is or what their email base is.
Mm-hmm.
And people really need to look at that before anything, don't they?
Yeah, totally. And I don't want it to sound like, because follower numbers to an extent are also a vanity metric. But then on the other side, it's about building a really engaged community that is interested in what it is that you're saying, and what it is that you're selling as well, and sort of finding that balance within your content to do both. So I always encourage people to go through like a process where you say, I'll put out a post that is like educational, one that is quite inspiring, one that informs people about you and your brand, and then a post that is around selling. And then you go back through it and do it again. And what tends to happen is people go sell, 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 because they're so desperate to get rid of this product. And it comes across kind of desperate, and buyers can smell desperation from a mile off. And then on the other side, people tend to just only stick to the fluffy, you know, lovely content where it's like pretty picture, inspirational mood board, a little about me, about my dog, about my family, but then they don't ever like actually sell. And like you said, you've got 1 to 3% of people who are converting, and that's when you, in my opinion, like when you find that balance between the nurturing and the selling content, because you're kind of keeping people interested and then asking them to buy, and then keeping them interested again and asking them to buy. Whereas otherwise you might just come across as like a beauty blogger or a sort of sleazy salesman or woman.
Yeah, because it's really interesting you said about it's basically like the 4 pillars, isn't it? Inspiration, what are they? Inspirational, sales,
Education, and informing.
yeah, and lots of people just do like 1 or 2 all of the time and then wonder why nothing's happening, whereas like you said, do like 1 post stating 1, then the next time doing the other, and then just keep alternating all 4.
Yeah, because people go, oh really, like only 1 in 4 posts should be a salesy kind of post, and I'm like, well yeah, because that's not to say that somebody wouldn't buy off the back of you sharing an inspiring post, but it's just the call to action isn't being like buy. It might be, what do you think about this, come and get involved, like put your answer in the comments, and just trying to show people that you are interested in them, so that you're saying that you're giving more than you're asking for in return. Because what people say is, you know, like you're showing up online and just ask, like take, and nobody wants a friend like that. You know, if you went to go and meet a friend at a coffee shop and they just spoke about themselves the whole time and were like, cool, I've got to go, see you later, bye, you just kind of feel a bit used, and you think, oh okay, I'm fine, thanks for asking. And that's how you want, or not how you want your customer to feel, sorry, you want your customer to feel like you're interested in them, you're providing something of interest to them, and then saying, oh, do you fancy this in return? It just feels nicer.
It really is about that relationship building. What do you think about face to cam videos and building that personal presence? Because I know people hate face to cam, but I personally feel it's very important.
I agree. And the reason being is because, in inverted commas, I guess, let's say, is like it's free. And I know it's like not free on your emotional well-being, that it may be, but from a purely like financial point of view, it doesn't cost you anything to do that. And I really try and encourage people to build their brand on a budget, because most people are on a budget when they're starting out, unless they've got like huge investment. And if the aim is to build that know, like, and trust with people, face cam style content gets people to know you, like you, and trust you in one go. Whereas if you're putting out, you know, I'm going to use the same example, but like a mood board and then a how-to video and then this, like it just takes longer. And so if you're fine with that, then that's okay. If you like, I'm not prepared to do face to cam, then just know that your customer journey might be a little bit longer than somebody that is talking to video. And it's not like a necessity. It's just the reason that we encourage it is because we see it work. And your audience feel like they know you better. They understand your personality. They might see something in you that they see in themselves and think, oh, I like her, she's like me. And then you have this bond, and then they are more likely to buy. It's just kind of putting the accelerator pedal on that customer journey, in my opinion, for a pretty low cost.
Yeah, I do face to cam quite a lot, but I had a comment yesterday because I passed my business strategy course and I was really happy about this qualification because I left school at like 13. I had no qualifications. I've never done an exam in my life. And so I shared obviously this online, but my followers know my story because I talk about it quite a lot. And someone that I don't know at all was like, well done. I know how much this means to you because of what you've gone through or because of your qualifications, whatever the sentence was. But I looked and I was like, I don't personally know who that person is, but because of my face to cams and because of me building that personal brand, they really resonate with me and they understand me and they can feel my feeling of being so happy.
Yeah, that's amazing. And congratulations.
Thank you. Well happy about that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just it's just amazing how it builds up that relationships with people, and people just getting to know you and understand you. I done a face to cam today, just literally about my day and having to walk up my big hill to get to my house, like, and people will message me back on that because they just want to talk and they want to know more about you.
Yeah. Do you find like some people say to you like, oh, but what's the point? Or surely you might, that's fine for you because you lead an interesting life, but my life is so boring. Like nobody's going to be interested in me. I hear that quite a lot. And that's just not true. There is definitely magic in the mundane things in life. And I would say some of the most mundane stories I've put up are the ones that get the most engagement. So the other day, I asked for some advice about where to buy some pots and pans. That has nothing to do with retail, but I got loads of replies of people saying, oh, I love mine. I hate these. Don't get these. I think you should buy these. And so then second to that, people are like, okay, great. You've got all this engagement, but it's got nothing to do with what you're doing. But I don't see that as a problem because I'm not assuming that everybody is ready to buy. I'm assuming that some people may have just landed on my page yesterday. Some people might have followed me through a friend. Another person might have been waiting and watching for me to launch something and they're on the edge. And then other people are like buying. And so I try and talk to all of those people. And what I see a lot of people do is only try and get the sale. And you just really, it's hard if you're financially reliant on the business at the beginning that it has to earn you a living. And I would say at the beginning, I had a part-time job, I had a freelance job. And so I was able to allow those relationships to grow slowly. And when people say, like, oh, I'm going to pack the towel in and I'm going to give it everything, I've definitely seen that work for people. But I would also say it's quite hard to be relaxed about your content when everything you own needs to sell really, really quickly. What do you think?
I agree, definitely, because again that desperation comes across, doesn't it? And like I said, no
Yeah.
one wants to buy anything that comes across desperate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really, really valid point, but people just want to know that you're human. And I agree
Yeah.
with putting things up that aren't related to your business whatsoever, just so people can relate to you as a person, because you can do something as a business and a competitor can do something as a business, and you might do exactly the same things, but then a person that's a potential client or a potential customer will go, okay, this person does the same thing and this person does the same thing, but actually I really resonate with this person because she shares this online, so I'm going to go and support her.
Yeah,
And
totally. Like where you were saying you left school at 13, I talk about the fact that I got bullied at Arcadia. You know, it was like such a brutal, horrible environment to work in. And there were people who worked at the NHS that were like, I totally resonate with this. And again, you know, they might work at the NHS now, but they're looking to build a fashion brand. And so when they're looking for somebody for help, that story is the thing that really bonded though, like me and them together. Or they just, people are always looking for like-minded souls. And I do think I think I'm seeing it somewhere before where it does come from almost like a cave woman era where you're always looking for like common ground to be like with your tribe or like people like us. So it's very, very, very like deep rooted within us to look for people who are where you're seeing something that you see within yourself as well to connect you together. Like even with me and you, like when I found you, I was like, oh, she's like me but beauty. And that gave me like a reason to reach out to you because I felt like we had really similar goals and aspirations for the brands that we work with. Yeah, we're in two different industries, but we'd still have something in common.
Definitely. The whole thing is you are who you surround yourself with, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. And it's really important to, I mean, it's maybe a slight tangent, but on that is to go to networking events. Do you have many that you go to? Do you enjoy going to them?
So when I first started in business like 15 years ago, I pushed myself into them and I hated every second.
Yeah.
You know, that whole stand up, say a minute about your business, sit back
Yeah.
down, have an awkward breakfast. I used to do those a lot, and I hated them, but I knew I had to do it because
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't known whatsoever in my local area or anything. So I put myself out my comfort zone and done them. As time's gone on, obviously I've been more confident, and I don't do like the breakfast meetings or anything anymore. I now go to more industry events. I now speak on the stages, so it's now completely different.
Winning awards.
I know from that little girl that literally couldn't go to a breakfast club without shitting herself.
Yeah,
but
I just
it's
love
crazy.
being at home.
Exactly. But networking events are really important, aren't they? And the big connections that can be made are insane. I joined a mastermind at the beginning of this year, and I actually done that because, as much as people might say, okay, well, you've got the podcast and you talk on stages and you must be really confident, believe it or not, I'm not confident whatsoever if you put me in a space with people. But I joined this mastermind, one of the reasons, because I wanted to overcome that, and I really wanted to be around like-minded people all the time.
Yeah.
And there was a face-to-face, or like first face-to-face event that we done together, and I thought, oh my God, this is literally like my worst nightmare, because I don't know any of these people. They're going to be so much more successful than me. I'm going to feel out of my comfort zone, but I need to do it. And I literally had the best day, and I've made the best friendships, and we are all so like-minded. And I think it's so easy to compare yourself in them situations too, of, well, I'm not as successful as them, or they take loads more money, or they've got loads of staff members, or whatever that might be. But actually everyone's got the same different battles going on all of the time, and it's so good to bounce off people. So networking events and joining masterminds and just being around like-minded people, I think is key, because your family and friends, in the nicest possible way, just aren't going to get it.
No, I mean, mine are great in the fact that they listen, and some people don't even have that luxury. But they can't really give anything back that is like constructive or from experience, like, oh, when I did this, I did that. And that's kind of what you need, is to be around those people. And I 100% agree with you that at the beginning it's not that comfortable to do it, and sitting on your sofa watching Netflix is just such an easy option, and you're thinking, oh God, I've got to go and get ready in like half an hour, I don't want to do it, I'm kind of tired, maybe I'm getting sick. And then you go, and maybe your goal at the beginning is just to go, like, you don't even have to speak to anybody, you just be in the room, and then the next time you go, you can sort of like push yourself to be like, okay, I'm going to speak to one person. And I remember the very first networking event I went to, I was meant to be meeting two different friends there, and both of them cancelled on me as I arrived. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go in here on my own. And there was a girl who was stood by the coffee machine, and I thought she worked there. And so I was like, oh, can I grab a drink? And she was like, I don't actually work here. And I was like, the first thing that's come out of my mouth, I've made like a total tit of myself. But I ended up chatting to her. We had a bit of a laugh about it. We've become friends. We actually ran a course together like years later. It's just, you never know where these things are going to take you. And so at the beginning, I thought, oh, she's a life coach and I work in fashion, we've got nothing in common. But actually, we did, because people starting a fashion brand really hold themselves back through like a mindset perspective. So we sort of joined forces, and it did really well. But
it's so interesting.
yeah, you would it, and that also was like 6 years after me asking her to get me a drink, like by accident. I was like just so nervous, it sort of fell out of my mouth. So yeah, it definitely does take time, and you might leave that room thinking, well, that was pointless, nothing came of it, and then 3 years later somebody says, oh, do you know anyone that does this? And you'll have a flashback from this person that you know. And I always just think like life is so much easier the more people you know. As I've got older and the more people I know, I have felt like my life has got easier, that whether it's like a client that comes along and they're not the right fit, but they would be the right fit for somebody else, like you don't then have to work with them. Or if you have a client that's stuck and you think, oh God, I can't really answer that, but I know somebody who can, you then still look like an authority figure to that client, because you've got this like amazing black book of people to help. So
which
yeah,
I think's like gold when it comes to working with a coach or joining anything or joining forces with people, is because you have access to their connections too. So if someone's
yeah,
well connected, that's priceless, because if they then have someone that can do websites, or they can help you build a product or a brand or whatever that might be, there's always someone that you can go to, then they're trusted as well for that person, because, well, they've been recommended by me, for example, so they're going to
Yeah,
obviously trust this person.
yeah, exactly. And so yeah, you might not want to go, but I would say most people don't want to go to networking events. Like, that's not a reason to go. That's probably a very common reason. You need a better reason than that to not go, and just see what happens. You just never know what might come of that opportunity. And there was another one the other day where I didn't want to go and speak at this event because they weren't paying me for it. And I just thought, oh, what's the point? Like, I could go and use that whole day and work with a client. And I was like, I'm going to go anyway. And then I got an email off the back of it for this like press opportunity. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm so glad I went. Like, just say yes and see what happens. And you'll be grateful for it, I promise.
Yeah, business doesn't take 5 minutes to start and be successful, does it? It is a journey. And I think if you're not willing to put literally years into it, there's no point starting, because
Yeah.
nothing comes easy.
I read that, or I think it was like a YouTube video that was like seeing your business as a degree. So when you're starting out, you have to think, I'm going to stick at this for like 3 to 4 years and see if I graduate. Because I think people do start it and then think, oh, this is really hard. And if it was, like I know I said right at the beginning, it's easier than ever to start a business. That doesn't mean it's easier than ever to run a business, because there is just so much more competition now. And I really try and encourage people to almost like monetize their personality, because that tends to be the thing that makes them unique, is you. And like what you were saying about your experience and your story and your journey is why somebody would work with you. It's the same with anybody selling anything. Like, just go back through your life and think, well, what are some things that have happened to me where I've thought that probably didn't feel great, and it was because of this reason, or that was not okay, or that felt really unfair. And I think a lot of businesses start because you're trying to like fix something that has happened to you, whether you kind of know it or not. So for me, like, I try and say I'm like the friendly face of fashion, and that's because of what happened at Arcadia. I'm like, you don't have to be a bitch to work in fashion, did you know? Like, and then it attracts those kind of people. And maybe for you, like, you don't need to have a degree to work in the beauty industry, and here's the reasons why. That's why that would attract people to you. So yeah, not being afraid to look back on your life and see what's happened.
And share your opinions, because those that you see that are viral, or those that you see are really successful and always there, what are they doing? They're talking, they're on a run, they're sharing their opinions and their views. And sometimes you think, how are these people so successful? Well, it's because they're just getting in front of people. That's literally
Yes,
it.
I know. Do you get scared sometimes to share your opinion? Because I do.
So I'm really stuck on this subject currently right now. And I
Okay.
spoke to one of my business partners in another business, and she was like, mate, you just need to get your opinions out there more, because you're so opinionated. And I really, I really am opinionated, and I share it, but I definitely don't share it enough, because I think due to being bullied when I was younger, that confrontation comes through, and I'm like, oh, I need to be liked by everyone. And
Yeah.
I'm okay with admitting that, but actually I don't need to be liked by everyone. And my opinion's valid and everyone else's opinion's valid, and there isn't actually a right or wrong. And yeah, I just need to grow some balls basically, and just
Me too. I never made the link between the bullying thing and the people pleasing and the opinions, though. That's really interesting. Um, so yeah, I'm like, that's the reason why I don't do it. But I do, and I have done it in the past, and they've always been my best performing videos. But I think I only want to share my opinion when I really mean it. I don't want to do it for like flippant things or off the cuff. I think I've got to wait until something really like riles me up, and then it's almost like I can't help but talk about it.
Yeah.
And they're the things that do tend to do well.
They are. There was one that springs to mind is I did put up something about having a cleaner and the reasons why you should have a cleaner and what are your views on it.
Yeah.
And obviously there was business people that were like, yeah, definitely have a cleaner because my time's worth more than that, and what obviously on the same level was me. And then you had other people that were like, how can you afford that? Just do it yourself. And there was a real battle with where you sit with having a cleaner, and that was really interesting. But because I believed in it so much, I actually didn't mind and respected obviously the other people's opinions. And there's what else was there was something else I can't remember right now, but it is really interesting. But as long as you really believe in the opinion you're putting across, it's then easier. Oh, that was it. It was when Molly May said about 24 hours a day. Everyone's got saying 24 hours a day. I kind of was with her on that, but just not the way she said it.
Yeah, totally.
So I was up for talking about that as well. And that was an interesting one. So
because when you can back it up, I think the fear comes from like, am I confident in arguing this or not? Or is it just like, oh, I feel a bit like that? But I could also probably see the other side. I think if the opinion is a bit like that, then you're going to get so much like force coming back to you that you have to be able to defend it. And I think when you are like really riled up about something, you will be like, like just batting off at every DM because you're like, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And so it gives you like a sense of confidence to talk about something, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I think mine was around when Gemma Owen, another Love Island story, took the PLT deal, and then Tasha Gorey was another girl in the same year who took the eBay deal. And I just said, why are people still doing this? Why are Love Islanders still using their platform for brands that are so blatantly using labor that's not fairly paid? I just think it's disgusting. And wow, did that kick off.
Really?
He went, don't judge a woman about how she wants to earn a living. And I was like, I agree with that, but I mean, don't support somebody that has been proven to use slave labor. Is that right? Because those people are often women that aren't being paid properly. So it's just an interesting conversation.
And you've got the background knowledge of that, and you know what goes down behind the scenes. So you're going to feel really passionate about that. So I guess it's about you then educating people, which you can only do if you put your opinion across.
Yeah. And there was another one that was like, if you're going through the cost of living crisis and you are on a budget this winter, here's why I would encourage you to buy from Primark instead of Boohoo. Because not all cheap retailers are the same, in my opinion. That got a massive backlash as well. But interestingly, it was a 3-part video, and part 1 and 3 had like dozens of comments, but part 2 was about about me asking people that worked there, who I know, going back to the networking, what their margins are. And Boohoo work on a much higher margin than Primark do. So therefore, you're getting a better quality product for the price compared to Boohoo. That video had 0 comments because nobody could come at me about it. Because I was like, well, I've fact checked it and this is the case. So yeah, the like video 1 and video 3, everyone was like, rah, rah, rah. But video 2, nothing. I was like,
up yours.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think going back to your point is like, if it's something that you're passionate about and something that you know about, that's a really good topic to share.
Because I'm feeling exactly the same now. Anyone listening to this is like, right, what's Elizabeth's Instagram, or where should you put this? Because I want to read what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Another person messaged me off the back of that video saying, oh my God, are you okay? I've just seen, I won't mention her name, but a big sustainability blogger reshare your post. And so I went to go and take a look, and she'd blocked me. So she'd taken my post, made a whole load of comments, like content about it. And she's got like 250,000 followers. And I just thought, why did you not message me? Why did you not talk about it? Like, hear my opinion and talk it through. Like, I would have done a live with you about it. And yeah. And I was just like, well, I'm fine. I don't care. Like, she wants to do that, then so be it. Come at me.
Wow. Why do people do that? It just baffles me.
I know. Yeah. I think there's like, I mean, it's probably a whole other conversation, but around the difference between holding people accountable and online bullying, I think there is a very blurry line between those two things.
Yeah,
Um,
there is. That's big in our industry right now as well.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Whole other podcast topic for another
it
day.
is. It is. Right. So lastly, I'm going to ask you one more question and then I'll let you go because I know you're super busy. But obviously you help brands monetize their business. What tips can you give to help our listeners do that?
Focus on your numbers. The numbers don't lie, and just keeping an eye on some key metrics in your business. So a new one, I would say the newest number that I'm keeping a track of is that grey bar on your Instagram profile about how many people are seeing your page. And basically, as of today in 2023 in spring, the more reels I do, the higher the number is. And so I just treat Instagram to be like a teacher's pet. I'm like, you tell me what to do and I'll do it because it benefits me. And so if I have to make more reels in order for me more people to see my content, I don't care, I'll do that. So that's number one, because the more people that can see your content, the better, the more likely you are to get click through to your website, the better, because remember, we're working on this like 1 to 3% conversion rate. So that's number one, your average order value, your traffic, and your conversion rate. So just keep an eye on those numbers. Also thinking about like your profit margin. So making sure that you're not undercharging. I think often you might see your sales growing, but then you don't see the money in your bank account growing in the same way. And it's often to do with there is like a hole in your bucket that is leaking somewhere. For example, you give away a free tote bag for every order, and that tote bag isn't actually included in the cost price somewhere. Things like that, just being really aware of the numbers is going to serve you well.
I think that's where so many people go wrong, isn't it? Not knowing their numbers and their margins.
Yeah, because I mean, I was in the bottom set at maths, might I add. Like, maths is not my thing, but I know I probably only need like 3 things to keep an eye on, and that's me done. And I also have a friend that is good at maths. Find a friend that's good at maths, and then you can ask them for things in return. And she asks me about creating content, and I ask her about cash flow and all sorts. So, yeah, little skill swaps like that can come in handy.
Again, it's all about who you know, not what
Yes,
you know.
exactly.
Oh, so where can people follow you?
I am at Elizabeth Stiles UK on Instagram, and come and follow me there. That's where I spend most of my time. I love to chat, as you can probably tell. So yeah, drop me a DM if you've listened to it. Any comments or thoughts or opinions, please feel free to fly into my inbox, and I would love to connect with you. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, welcome. We will put the links at the bottom of the show notes. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you for coming on. I can imagine we could talk about this stuff all day long. So
I'm
we
sure
might have to
too.
do another podcast another day.
Yeah, but stay tuned for part 2.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Bye.